So 2 weeks ago, one person accused Brett Kavanaugh of committing a sex crime in 1982. The four other people present deny it happened. Those are the facts we have on the table. For this, the left has called him a sex criminal, an attempted rapist, and tried to destroy his life. He fought back yesterday. Now his persecutors have a new argument. Watch.
We know one thing. He does not have the temperament to be a judge.
He basically had a tantrum and showed that he doesn't have the temperament to be a Supreme Court justice. You just felt like, oh, well, that's what he's like when he's angry and belligerent when he's drunk.
His temperament is just not suited.
My opposition solidified because of temperament and fitness, which I believe he lacks.
Senator Blumenthal, fresh from Quezon, delivering his verdict here. Chris Hahn is an attorney, radio host, and former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer. He joins us tonight. So I think this is the most Orwellian argument maybe I've ever seen. So you attack the guy as a sex criminal, an attempted rapist, a drunk, someone who's unfit not just to be a Supreme Court justice, but to live in this country. And when he gets mad about it and defends himself, you say, look at him. He's an abuser because he got mad. Like, what? It's too unfair, actually.
Well, when you're weak on the law, pound the facts. When you're weak on the facts, pound the law. When you're weak on both, pound the table and scream like hell. That's what he did. Judges are not supposed to scream like hell. They're not supposed to be partisan like he was. And it was, quite frankly, a disappointing display by Judge Kavanaugh, one that no judge would ever accept. I worked in the federal courts. I worked in the state courts. I have never seen anything like that. That is not something you would expect to see from a level-headed jurist.
Okay, but the level-headed jurist was just accused of a sex crime he says he didn't commit. His reputation's been destroyed.
Right.
He will never work again unless he gets this job. You know that to be true. If I said, hey, Chris, I have no evidence of it, but someone told me anonymously that you're a rapist, and I'm going to tell your kids about it until they don't like you anymore, and your neighbors won't speak to you, and you would be very upset. I would be upset. It happened to me. I was upset. And it's okay because it's legitimate to be upset.
And I would not be behaving. I would not be behaving like a Supreme Court judicial nominee. He is a Supreme Court judicial nominee who should always present himself.
So
as
how
such,
should senators behave? Should senators be, especially members of the Judiciary Committee, should they be honest?
Right.
Should they be fair? Should
Senators.
Should they stop trying to destroy people for
however their
reasons?
voters will accept. Senators stand before the voters and are approved by the voters. This man stands before Congress.
However
the standard is higher.
Accept.
He's going for a lifetime appointment, sir. A lifetime appointment, Tucker. Come
Whatever
on.
it takes.
You gotta have a higher standard.
Well, that was the most revealing answer I got. You know, it's Friday. I'm at the end of the show. I'm sorry it took this long just to get a really clear answer. They should behave whatever voters are put up with.
I like to give you know I always give you a clear answer, Tucker, which is why you keep me on the air. But
I'll be thinking about it all weekend.
But here is the thing, Tucker.
Sum it up
the
for me.
President of the United States, Donald Trump, said specifically there should be no doubt. How could we have no doubt after yesterday? I'm sorry. There's plenty of doubt of Kavanaugh's story.
There really are two countries. Because I mean this, I'm not a partisan Republican. I don't really like the Republicans very much. But I watched him yesterday and I really felt for him. And I turn on the other channels and they're like, white privilege! I mean, that's like, we don't see the world the same way at all.
Tucker? I mean, the question is,
I did believe her. Hold on, stop.
So,
I believed her. Wait, I believed her. I think she thinks she's telling the truth. There's no evidence she's telling the truth, but I believe she believes it. That doesn't make it true. It's an important distinction.
Yeah.
I've always thought she meant it, and I feel sorry for her. Anyway, we're out of time. Chris, thank you.
Most people who are reliving a traumatic experience will not have evidence of it 30 years later.
No evidence required, no. Just the accusation. The way Kavanaugh has been treated by Democrats in the Senate, as well as by the media and the left-wing interest groups who obediently do their bidding in concert, gets to the most basic questions about what kind of country we want to live in. Does every American deserve due process? Are the accused presumed innocent rather than guilty? Does fairness still matter in this country? Well, to all of those, we'd answer yes. The left argues no. To them, acquiring power justifies anything. That's the real debate here. We thought you should know that. And now to the day's developments, and there are many. After yesterday's hearings, it seemed that this debate must be drawing to a close. It's hard to imagine watching what Brett Kavanaugh said to the Senate yesterday without feeling profound sympathy. This is a deeply sincere man who believes that his family has been destroyed by false and unsupported allegations. Many wept as they watched him speak. Democrats remained unmoved. Some argued that Kavanaugh's anguish was itself evidence that he is a monster, as if only a sex criminal would recoil at being called a sex criminal. Barbara Boxer explained today that his anger on stage made her think he was capable of violence. Would you be angry if they said that about you? But no matter what they say, Democrats don't mean any of this personally. They don't hate Kavanaugh or his family. They don't seek to destroy either one. They're just irrelevant. Democrats just want to be in control. So yesterday, they immediately began stalling for time, and they did that by demanding a 7th FBI investigation into Brett Kavanaugh's life. The point was to run out the clock on his nomination. They continued that tactic today at 2 different hearings, and especially in the afternoon when the Senate Judiciary Committee reconvened. Watch this.
I cannot sit here. I cannot participate in what I know history is going to look back as a dark moment again, in the same way we look back at the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas trials. I cannot participate that. To again relegate ourselves to what I believe is a dark, dark element of our society. So with that, sir, I will leave.
Well, that was New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, a man so oily he qualifies as an alternative fuel. Almost nobody who knows Booker takes him seriously, but today he found an ally, surprisingly, among Republicans. That was Jeff Flake of Arizona. Flake had declared that he would be voting for Kavanaugh's nomination. Then he was confronted by a mob of screaming protesters, the youth wing of the Democratic Party. Watch.
You are allowing someone who is unwilling to take responsibility for his own actions to sit in the higher court of the country and to have the role of repairing the harm that has been done in this country to many people. No, thank you. What do you think? You have power. Truth.
Ma'am, do you want to talk to his staff?
No, I want to talk to him. Don't talk to respond. What do you think? I understand, but tell me, I'm standing right here in front of you. What do you have to? Do you think that he's telling the truth? Don't know.
Wow. That man looks afraid and ashamed. You don't often hear senators or see senators look like that. This kind of thing's been happening a lot in Washington. It happened to Ted Cruz. When he found himself surrounded by red guards like these at dinner, he left the restaurant. Jeff Flake crumbled. Flake announced that he would not approve Kavanaugh's nomination without additional FBI investigation. Democrats cheered his change of heart. Quote, I applaud Senator Jeff Flake's decision to rise above the partisan circus on display during this entire process, harumphed West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Of course, in Washington, when they congratulate you on leaving the partisan circus, chances are you are now the ringmaster of the partisan circus. And of course, Jeff Flake is exactly that. So what does this mean going forward? Well, factually, it doesn't mean a lot. The FBI does not want this case. There is nothing to investigate here.
This is like watching the British version of The Office. Like, it's funny, but awkward and sad at the same time.
Yes. And they have said that pretty definitively already. Weeks ago, Dianne Feinstein sent them Christine Ford's original letter, and that was their response. This is not a federal criminal investigation. It cannot be. No federal crime has been alleged. Only police in Maryland can conduct an investigation into this, and they're not because, strangely, Christine Ford has never filed charges against Brett Kavanaugh in the jurisdiction where she says this took place. Instead, the FBI will conduct what is called a supplemental investigation. Agents will interview only those directly connected to Christine Ford's original allegation. In this case, that would amount to Christine Ford and Brett Kavanaugh, of course, along with the 3 people Ford says were present when she was attacked in 1982. That would be Mark Judge, P.J. Smith, and Leland Kaiser. The problem is that all 5 of these people have already given sworn testimony. You're aware of what they've said. 4 of them have categorically denied under oath Ford's version of the story. If they deviate from their previous testimony, they could face criminal penalties. So what could we possibly learn from having the FBI interview them? Keep in mind that the FBI makes no judgments in these investigations. It does not assess credibility. It does not render any kind of conclusion. It just does interviews, and then it summarizes them for lawmakers. The FBI, no matter what they're telling you, is not a tiebreaker in this or any other investigation. It's an investigative agency that will provide the Senate with information that senators already have. So Brett Kavanaugh is going to get interviewed again. You'd probably have to get a prostate exam to be more thoroughly vetted than Kavanaugh has been in the last 20 years, and they may try that too. If you were looking for truth, this would be an utterly pointless exercise. You wouldn't consider it. But the truth is not what anyone is looking for here, as you may have figured out. Democrats are hoping that more baseless allegations will emerge during the delay during which the FBI is investigating things that have long been investigated. Perhaps another reptilian porn lawyer will come forward with another discredited client who describes fantasies of, I don't know, gang rape or human sacrifice or child trafficking. Maybe it'll be ritual satanic abuse this time. They haven't tried that one in a while. Who knows what it'll be? But when those charges emerge, Democrats will demand new public hearings on every single one of them. Democracy hangs in the balance, they will tell us, meaning their access to power hangs in the balance. It's not a complicated formula, and everyone in Washington knows exactly what's going on here, except for maybe poor Jeff Flake. People who know Flake say he may actually believe Democrats are acting in good faith, or maybe he's auditioning for a new employer. He's leaving the Senate early next year. Either way, you'd have to be an idiot to think that caving to this demand will induce Democrats to call off their smear campaign against Brett Kavanaugh and his family. They won't. They'll accelerate it. Why wouldn't they? It's working. But there's a cost, especially for Republicans. At this point, Kavanaugh isn't just a Supreme Court nominee. He is a folk hero to many people, an inspiration to millions. People who've spent the last 2 years being browbeaten and bullied by their moral inferiors were buoyed by what he said yesterday. These are people who've been told they are worthless and bigoted. They've been unfairly maligned because they are in the way of other people gaining power. They've been commanded to shut up and obey. Kavanaugh stood up for those people yesterday. He raised a middle finger to their tormentors, and they love him for it. Kavanaugh is far more popular with Republican voters tonight than any single Republican senator. And he's incalculably more popular than the Senate as a whole. Kavanaugh probably wouldn't describe it this way, but he now has a constituency, a powerful one, and they will long remember whether or not Republicans defend him in his moment of need.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary. 'Tis but a scratch.
So apparently, men aren't allowed to talk about sexual assault. Apparently, white men aren't allowed to talk to a woman who's accusing a man of sexual assault. Apparently, old, white, Republican men aren't allowed to stand up for what's right because only women can talk about sexual abuse, at least according to the Democrats. And the wimpy Republicans in the Senate, at least most of them except Senator Lindsey Graham, caved to that politically correct nonsense. They caved to the Democratic bullies telling them they weren't allowed to talk because they're men. Well, lucky for you, I'm a woman, and I don't cave to bullies. Feminists don't speak for me. Alyssa Milano does not speak for me. Dianne Feinstein does not speak for me. Spartacus sure as heck doesn't speak for me. And as a woman, I'm allowed to talk about this, right? Or am I not allowed because I'm a conservative woman? I feel terrible for Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. Her testimony was heartbreaking. Clearly, she's a damaged woman. You can see the trauma in every line of her demeanor. I feel terrible for Judge Brett Kavanaugh. His testimony was compelling. I'm sure I'm not the only one who was bawling my eyes out watching him talk about his daughter, praying for the woman accusing him of a crime he says he's innocent of. Now listen to me very closely. Both testimonies were compelling. They were emotional. This is why we look for evidence. If you're basing your judgment on whose emotion moved you the most, you're doing it wrong.
We are always with